Thanks everyone for joining us this morning for the CalsCom workshop in July. Leanne Vincent is going to be talking with us about MailChimp and email design today. Leanne is one of two College of Agriculture and Life Sciences graphic designers. She's also currently studying for her master's degree with the College of Engineering or College of Design. Why engineering? If anybody has any questions that come up, please put them in the chat. I think Leanne's also going to be asking for questions during the time. Please participate and let us know what else you would like to know. Take it away, Leanne.
Great, yeah. Hi, everyone. This is a crash course in email design in MailChimp. Like Janine just said, this is me. I'm a junior graphic designer. There's my email. I always like to say that I will email you back and everything if you email me. I will put that also at the end of this presentation. But yeah, there's me. I'm going to give everyone a warning before I start. This is not an email generator workshop. I'm so sorry. If you're familiar with NC State, we have like an email generator tool where you can build an email basically in WordPress and then import it into MailChimp. Full transparency, that's just not something I do on the daily. I have done it, but I much prefer to build in MailChimp. I know there was one question, I think, in the pre-registration about that. There is instructions on the email generator homepage about how to load templates into MailChimp. You have to import the code. And it is a little bit difficult. I've done it once before and it didn't work out super duper great, but I'm happy to help you with it if that is something you're really, really interested in. UCOM also has some resources and is happy to connect with you on that. But just wanted to give everyone a warning that it's mostly not going to be about that. And if you need any help with that, connect with me one-on-one. So instead, today we're going to cover email design best practices, designing for your content and your audience, and then I'll take you through how I kind of do things in MailChimp. If you don't use MailChimp, I know that there's a couple people who use ActiveCampaign. A lot of this is very general knowledge about email design in general, not specific to MailChimp. There's a couple of tips, and I'll show you me doing it in MailChimp, but you should be able to still gain a lot of process design stuff from this and not just oh, everything about this is MailChimp. So hopefully that's helpful. All right. Jumping right into it. If you can only listen to me for 10 minutes, this will probably be a little bit more than 10 minutes, but here are the things you need to know. This is the most important knowledge. First things first, when you're designing your email, you should be doing mobile first design, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's designing for your smallest screen first, and then applying that to your desktop. So the general rule, the general mantra is one eyeball, one thumb, and arm's length. That means your email is easily readable with one eye. If I'm distracted and half reading your email and half I don't know, cooking something, I have no idea. I should be able to understand your email by just looking at it with one eye. Everything that I'm supposed to be clicking, I should be able to click with one thumb. Your links, your calls to action, those should be very clear. And I shouldn't have to be struggling for them or zooming in. And then arm's length. Everything should be big enough, your text, your visual cues, that if I'm holding my phone out here scrolling like this, I can still understand everything. If you're a numbers person, you're no, I think everyone's on desktop. Here's some numbers to throw at you to be this is why it's really important. About half of all email opens occur on mobile devices. And about 42.3% of people delete emails on their devices if they're not optimized for mobile. Think about your own experience, right? If you get an email and you're okay, I'll open it up on my phone because I'm in the field or on site, something like that, and the email's broken and you can't read any of the headlines because all of the characters are stacked on top of each other, and you're I'm not going to read this email. I'm just going to throw it away. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to take the time to go back. And you just kind of lose your audience's trust then if they can't understand it on their device. Similarly, a bunch of people in the younger generations, 59% of millennials and 67% of Gen Z, are using their phones as their primary email source. So they're opening it there first. They're not looking at it a second time there. That's their entry point. So we want to make their experience a good experience. And here's the general guidelines that you use to do that. Using a single column design instead of 3 things beside each other, 2 things beside each other. That's going to allow your design to format correctly on mobile and desktop. If you look at any of our CalsComm emails, they're all single column design. Yeah, we use like some image card blocks, but those are automatically formatted to like work correctly on mobile. I'll show you that a little bit later. But a single column is just, it's a good rule that nothing is going to break if you're using it on a smaller screen size. It'll reformat automatically. Image size, these are some basic guidelines. I would never go over 1200 pixels, but they'll scale if they're underneath. The more important one there is the max file size of 1 megabyte. If you're using 5 or 6 images and they're all 1 megabyte, it's going to be like, okay. If you're using 5 or 6 images and they're all like 3-4 megabytes, that's going to be a really slow load time, and your viewers probably aren't going to know that you have those images in your email, because by the time they've scrolled down or like to the bottom of the email, the top image is finally loaded. And when they scroll back up, they're like, oh wait, this is a completely different email. So make sure you're watching your file sizes, you're optimizing your images. On font size, 16 pixel minimum. Again, that goes back to that ARMS rule of you want everything to be seen. This is Apple and Google's recommendations right here. Try not to make things too big just for the sake of it. I think 22 pixels is usually a good like max like headline size. You really shouldn't be using things too much bigger than that unless there's like a really special case. And then your calls to action, you want to make sure that those, again, stand out so that people know, oh, I'm supposed to click here. This is leading me to something else. With all of this, here's my first like MailChimp test. You want to see how your email is going to look, right? Not only on a phone, not only on a desktop, but maybe it's going to look different in Gmail than it will for Outlook. Here's the way to do that in MailChimp. This is going to be like in an email template, like in the classic builder. If you're using the new builder, we can connect on how to preview that one-on-one, because most everything I'm going to show today is going to be in the classic builder, just because we use that the most. So you go over here in the top corner, enter preview mode. That'll show you the desktop. You can switch to mobile. And then you can also, here's where you can preview different inboxes, iPad, Android, etc. Are there any questions so far? Perfect. Keep it moving then. My next tip for you is to use visual hierarchy. It's what it sounds like as well. It's arranging your elements to show their importance. One tool that's like pretty popular for everyone is the inverted pyramid technique. It just means you put the more important stuff at the top because people read from top to bottom. This is our CALS Weekly email. We sort of take this strategy where we put our first featured story right at the top, and then we put, hierarchy of information there. Then we go into more details about other things. Our events and all that are lower down in the email, but we put that one big feature story at top and go from there. Another like huge thing I feel like I use all the time, every day, color and size to highlight information, right? If you're seeing something that's big and red, you're going to see that first before the thing that's smaller and black and white or gray. Intentional use of color is really important. You don't want everything to be, you don't want to use every shade in the rainbow or every shade of our brand colors. You want to be really intentional about where you're using that pop of color and using those sizes. Like I said, we have guidelines for a reason, but the larger and bolder text is going to be seen first, right? So right over here, my eye jumps to the calendar. My eye jumps to a life of ag education, and it jumps to this block. And this is our CALS Weekly email. So I will say this is at the bottom of the email, and we have seen in our click rates that featured story up top and this one at the bottom are getting like pretty equal click rates. So that's where you want to make sure you're balancing your visual hierarchy strategies. Just because it's at the top doesn't mean, oh, all the clicks are going to go here. If you're still highlighting something at the bottom of the email and people are reading through, they're going to be like, oh, well, this story has like, a different layout, maybe subconsciously, maybe they're not thinking on the front of their mind, but, oh, this story has this teal background. It's highlighted out. What is this? Let me click on this and let me read this. So using that intentional design strategy is going to lead people to it, and you're going to see that in your engagement. Here's another thing we've seen recently. You can add GIFs into your emails just like you can images, and that's going to really increase engagement. This is a CALS Magazine email we did recently where we highlighted a Yates Mill video, and I think we got like 500 extra views or something like that after we did this email push. So it was a really big like clue to us, like, oh my gosh, like people are going to watch this video and click on this if we just give them a little clue like, hey, this is moving, this is interesting, this is a video. You can also do this with promotions. This is how we promoted that we were on Threads, again in CALS Weekly, and just like a little 2-second animation of here's our account. I do have to give you a warning with GIF size. You have to optimize these to prevent slow load. I say 3 to 5, but I got like this one right here, I got down to 1 megabyte to fit in that image size rule. You don't want these to be super slow loading, because the general rule is if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load, everyone's going to miss it. Again, they're not going to scroll back up, or by the time they scroll back up, they've lost interest and they're not going to click on it now. So just make sure you're optimizing those. You can do that pretty easily on like a easy GIF or like any online image optimizer, and you can get them down. Any questions about any of that?
We have one
Right.
question. Do you see it, or do you want me to read it? Hi there. Can you send? Oh, that's not.
Oh, no.
There are questions about creating a GIF.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm gonna kind of scoop myself here. At the end of this, I always like with design workshops to give you an option to like connect with me one-on-one for specific questions like that. We're like, hey, could you walk me through how to do that? So there'll be like a sign up. I have it set for tomorrow, but I also have my email if you want to connect one-on-one, and I can take you through that. Honestly, I've used Canva recently to create GIFs. It's not bad. It doesn't give you super optimized ones, but it's pretty easy to create a GIF in Canva. So I can walk you through how to do that. Anything else? Cool. My next tip is something that's going to be super, super simple. And I feel like I have to say in every design workshop, just because it's a design workshop, your design needs to be on brand. Always, always, always. Whether that's NC State, whether that's cooperative extension, whatever it is, you need to open that email and know this is a NC State or cooperative extension email, using the appropriate colors, typefaces, etc. Our email font is not Universe and Glypha because it doesn't work on every single web page. It's either going to be Roboto or Arial. That's in our CALS brand book. So if you need a refresh on that, the link is in this presentation. You can also Google it on the NC State brand website or on our issue account. But everything that you need to know about brand is in there, and use it as a reference point. I still, to this day, I've been working here over a year, like a year and a half, and I still go to the brand website and I still like, okay, what's that hex code? Okay, what is that brand standard? Let me go and look at it. The thing that I had to highlight with email design is keep it simple. Keep it on the grid. You love white space as a designer. I love white space. I love to see things that are clean and simple. It's not only a brand element, but it's also just good practice. It's going to make your emails a lot cleaner, a lot more easily digestible. It's going to highlight your information. And instead of your reviewer being like, oh my gosh, there's like 7 things going on, they're like, that's what's going on. This thing, this story, got it, next. So just keep it on brand. I always have to say that. I know I probably beat people over the head with it, but I have to say it.
Well, and Leanne, before you go on, last month, Leanne and Patty Mercer presented on Canva. So that's also available through our YouTube CalsCom workshop that I send out the link for after this session. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit about putting the brand into practice, especially in Canva, that's a good workshop to rewatch or watch.
Yes. Love the brand. If you have any brand questions, I feel like I'm like very versed in it by now. So hit me up. My next thing with that is consistency is key. Every email, especially if you're sending out like repeating weekly emails like we do, like we send out Inside CALS every Tuesday and we send out CALS Weekly every Thursday. consistency is key. Those should look the same each week. Your reader should know, oh, it's going to look like this. This is how it's going to be formatted. This is how a link is going to look, etc. An easy way to make sure you're doing that is to just develop like a style guide for your emails, and then refer to it until you really know that like at the back of your hand. Put your font sizes in there. Put your call to action treatments in there. Write it all out. That way, if you're not the one building the email that week, someone else can reference that and be like, oh, got it. Okay, this is what we do when we build an email. If you're using MailChimp, they have default styles, especially for text, but also you can like upload your colors and your logo and everything into MailChimp. I've put video tutorials and also a like step-by-step text tutorial for MailChimp on how to do that. I can also show you that when I'm actually in MailChimp a little bit later. But that's going to allow you to be like every single headline across our emails looks the same and people know what that looks like and they know how to get their information. They know what a link looks like. They know what a button looks like. I know that's kind of simple to say, but I've built an email where it's like, oh, there's 2 different button sizes and maybe, you know, one looks different. And you're like, wait, am I supposed to click this one or what's going on? So consistency, excuse me, is going to let your readers know, here's what I expect every week from this organization. All right, that's all my best practices. That doesn't mean tune out, but that's the stuff I really want you to glean from this. And I think will really help you designing an email on whatever platform you design emails on. My next tip is make it about yourself. And by yourself, I mean your content and your audience. Content is going to determine the design. I don't ever start a design without having content in hand, because what am I going to do? Like, right? Like that's what you need. So before you are like, all right, let's hop in here and let's use all these tips, take a step back and ask yourself these questions. First of all, what is this email about? What are you sending? What's going in there? Your content is going to determine a ton of different things. If it's a recurring newsletter, you're going to need a lot different things in your email than like an invitation or one story. So look at your content first and say, okay, well, I'm going to need a headline for this, and then a byline or a subhead or, you know, whatever. But for this one, I don't need any of that. I just need this calendar invitation. I just need, you know, that, and outline it and then say, okay, how can I make those things look good? The next thing is obvious, but who are you sending these emails to? We have completely different audiences for mini emails, and they prefer different things. You'll know your audience more than I will, right? What will work for them? What do they prefer? Just because it works for someone else, like I love the NC State Bulletin. Favorite email of NC State other than, you know, our own, but I'm biased. I'm biased. But not everything they do works for us, right? It's a totally different audience. It's different content, it's different people building it. Just because it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for us. But there's things that I've gotten from them that I'm like, oh, that would be really cool to do. We could include that this week. You know, every email doesn't need every single thing, but you can gain a little bit of insight from others and what they're doing. So just remember who your audience is and what they prefer. Keep it simple. At the end of the day, most of the time, less is more. I always have to say this, but design is not decoration, and every choice needs to be intentional. So it's like, okay, you could just make a super duper pretty email, but what if that isn't working for your audience? What if they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to look. There's a lot of colors going on. There's a lot of different font treatments going on. At the end of the day, that's not helpful for them, right? You want it to be very intentional choices. Like, I've made this block red because I want it to stand out, not just because I want to make every block red to look like NC State. So make sure you're questioning things. There's an exercise that we do in school that was annoying at the time, but I see the merit of it now, where my professor was like, why did you make that 15-point font? Why is it blue? Why is it here on the page instead of here? And questioned every decision we made and went from top to bottom. And that really makes you question, like, oh, why did I do that? Like, I think we go through things pretty quickly and are subconsciously like, this is how it is, blah, 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 blah. But if you're questioning yourself and you're saying, okay, is this working for my user? Is this working for my design? That'll really make you take a step back and be like, maybe not. Maybe there's a different way to do something that will actually work better for our audience. Here's our case studies. I have to plug our emails, obviously, from CalsComm. So we have 3 different emails if you didn't know. Inside Cows, which is our internal stakeholders, basically a weekly rundown, Cows Weekly, which maybe y'all got in your inbox this morning if you're a subscriber. If not, I'll link the way you can subscribe at the end. But that's for our external stakeholders, different emails, different audiences. And then we have Cows Magazine, which are usually promoting one specific story in the magazine that we want to highlight. If you've never seen those before, here's what they look like. Cows Weekly is very highly visual. We just recently, in November, I think, launched a redesign of it to really highlight like the visual content and the visual storytelling that we're doing. Stories are the priority here. We have 5 stories that are featured. We also have events. We also have, some promos, but it's really designed to highlight the top content from the week. And it's designed to stand out from the other emails that we send. You look at Cows Weekly and it's Cows Weekly, not only from the banner at the top that says Cows Weekly, but just from the design of it overall. And then this is Inside Cows. You can see immediately it looks very different, and that's very intentional. We want our viewers to be like, oh, nope, this is one and this is the other. Even if they're, they're sent on different days, they have completely different content, but you look at it and immediately. This is different because it has, different content and the skew of the content, but also it has a larger number of stories. It has, different layout, and it's designed to accommodate like an RSS feed content. So a little behind the scenes, Cows Weekly, we have a content meeting, we build it out, we type those stories in because of the design. But this one, it's a different building process. We're going in the RSS feed, we're tagging these stories and they're being pulled in automatically. So the design of that accommodates things differently, and therefore it looks differently. And then here's Cows Magazine. This is at its core a promotional email, and usually, like I said, one story. This is all about Yates Mill. It's designed for really targeted engagement. We want you to click that video or go to read that story. And it's highly specific. We're not putting, other news stories that we do. We're just highlighting Cows Magazine, and it's very straightforward. It's very simple. The end goal is to get you to go do any engagement with Yates Mill. So I hope you can kind of see how the content determined the design of these. If you have any questions about specifically how I made those decisions, I'm happy to answer them. But that's kind of a case study in like 3 different ways that we structure our emails based on our content. This is my pro tip. I love this quote. I think I've had this quote in like 4 of my presentations, but good artists copy and great artists steal. If you're looking for design inspiration, steal it from others as a starting point. Look to your own inbox. What do you like to read? What are you engaging with? Ask your team members to do the same. Even if it's nothing related to what you do at work, if it's an email that you like to read, maybe like I subscribe to like a craft blog, and I just really like the way she talks to me in the email. I like the way she formats things. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll read this because Jen sent it. So I want to see what she's up to. That's a really great strategy. You could work that into your emails and just keep it as like a little idea. If you don't like subscribing to emails, but you're in charge of building them, that's okay. Go to Google, go to Pinterest, go to Behance. I recently found a really good email, and it's basically like Pinterest for email design. Use those, look at those, Google, best email newsletters of 2023. There's tons of stuff out there. That's not saying everything out there is great, but there's stuff that you can glean and take and brandify. That's kind of my last point as well, is that look inside NC State, look outside NC State. We can brandify almost anything. If it makes sense within the brand, it makes sense within your email, we can make it look like it's an NC State or a cooperative extension email. Okay, that's all my PowerPointy tips. Are there any questions before I move on and actually get into MailChimp? Great. My note here is that, again, I'm going to be using the classic builder. If you use the new builder in MailChimp, email me, come to my office hour thing tomorrow. We can work in that together.
Leanne, in my experience with the new builder, it's often it says like, you can't use this template, or this is
yeah,
I've tried to use it a few times, but it just seems like it doesn't really want me to use it.
Yeah, there's definitely some quirks. That's why I feel like I revert to the classic builder a lot. I've made it where like there's some things I like about the new builder, like especially the social integrations are really cool. But it also like I said, there's some quirks. Like I redesigned Cal's Weekly in the new builder, and it looked like totally different on the way it formatted the margins and like page alignment. And I think there's just like a lot of tweaking. I'm pretty sure it was still like in beta mode a year or two ago. So I feel like they haven't worked out all the kinks with it. And that's why I default to classic instead of the new builder. Just because I feel like they're still working some stuff out at MailChimp with the new builder. That's my own opinion, but maybe that's shared across everyone here. But yeah, I'm gonna hop into MailChimp. I'm gonna show you two designs and show you kind of how I took one from the other. This is not a design that went out or anyone else made. I made this up. I put a Cal's Tailgate email into this format. And so every time that I say that this is, off brand or whatever, I'm hating on myself. I did this in order as a demonstration. So no one get hurt or offended. I did this. But here are the things that I tried to work into it. I tried to make it not very on brand, like, center aligning some text instead of left aligning it. I tried to make it kind of inconsistent with like the button styles and some of the text treatments. I tried to like kind of confuse the content a little bit, give it a little bit of lack of visual hierarchy. And then I tried to make it kind of like that it would break on mobile. I don't know if I did a great job of that, but I tried. And we can do better than that. We can make it something a little bit more clean, a little bit more on brand, all the same content still. But yeah, so I'm gonna escape. And if you can't see me moving, hopefully you can because I see the little green thing around my screen, but let me know. I'm gonna have to move some things around. So this is the first email. I'm gonna enter preview mode so you can see it as it is. It's not bad. Really, it's not. If you have emails that look like this, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying this is like just can easily be elevated. Here's like a logo at the top. Here's the event that we're plugging. This is last year's Cal's Tailgate information. Here's like we want you to register a little bit more about Cal's Tailgate if you didn't know what it was. And then this is kind of the like ad section, for lack of a better word. Ag Day football game ad there, sponsor button. Here's our like, we have to put this in if you have a question or, you need to contact us about something. And then here's all of the like partners that are sponsoring Cal's Tailgate and their logos. So it's not bad. I will say that it has, I'm counting like 12 images in it. And I can tell you right now that I didn't optimize a single one. So I have no idea how this would look when I actually send it. I don't know if it would break. I don't know what the megabytes are for those. But I'll show you how I dealt with that. And here's what it looks like on mobile. So it is pretty responsive just because MailChimp is pretty good at that. They're pretty good at making things responsive. I will say I'm seeing the biggest issue right here is that this is supposed to be on top of this. It's a little confusing to read there. But everything else, it's not bad. They're pretty good at their blocks readjusting to be mobile friendly automatically. So there's that. And because I'm going to try to make this short and sweet, I'm not going to do everything. So I'm just going to show you how I made it better first. And then I'll go in and try to replicate that. I'll put this in preview mode. I just like it better in preview mode. It looks cleaner to me. So here's what I did. I made this one image, literally took it we had this made, but you could literally take it into Canva or Illustrator and just write that out in one image so that you've optimized it. You've made it where if it is on mobile, it displays correctly. But it also, cuts down immediately one image and it's going to give you a quicker load time. I made this kind of like a snazzier splash with some color, with some bigger fonts, some bolding. I made it on brand. And then I put all the info down here if you didn't know what it was, so that you have this kind of like image in your mind of, oh, that's like the event, that's all the information. You could screenshot that really easily or put it in your calendar. And instead of like looking down in the email for more information. All of that is at the top. If you just didn't scroll past here, you have everything I want you to have. You have my contact information, you have the register button, and you have all the information about this event. Then when you scroll down, we get, hey, sponsor us. We would love to have your money and your donations. Here's how to do that. There's also an Ag Day sponsor right here. There's a link here. And then we have our partnerships. What I did at the bottom, I'm not going to like probably get to this part of the email, so I'm just going to tell you, instead of uploading 6 individual ads, I just went ahead or images, excuse me. I went ahead and grouped those so that this is one image in the email. I'm trying to highlight it. So yeah, so you can see it. It's one image instead of 6 images. When it gets to mobile, it does, get a little bit smaller, but because they're not like content you really need to know, it's more of like a nod to our sponsors. It's not something that's like, oh, okay, like it's okay if it's a little bit smaller here, especially because our big sponsors have their big ones still. So that's how I made it a little bit better. I'm going to show you some of that. I'm trying to read, my Zoom bar's in my way. So yeah, here's how I kind of did that. Really easy here. My first change, making that logo this into one image, I just deleted this block. And then I went in, and instead of this one, I uploaded, I need to be in my little folder. Hold on, I'm going to grab it so I can see all my stuff together. I don't remember what I called it. Whatever, it's right here. I inserted this one, boom, immediately. And then you see right here in MailChimp that I can make that bigger or smaller because it's just a logo. I'm going to make it about like that. We can see that the size of that will change on mobile as well, but I'm thinking about, oh, when that's on mobile, it's going to be in this size of a screen instead of a huge desktop screen. So I want it big enough to see, but not, too big that it's going to take up the whole iPhone. The next thing I did here is I went ahead and I'm just going to honestly clear all of those styles because it's in this like box text. The default style for that, usually we don't use gray. We're usually using like a red, and that's why the default styles for in our MailChimp is white text. Oh, I've just changed the wrong thing. Oops. You saw nothing. Usually our backgrounds are not gray. They are not blue either. Oh, it's not letting me. They're red. So that's why the text is white. But if it was, on gray, we would just change the color in here. So I actually moved this into, instead of a box text, I use this in an image card block. I like the image card block because as you see on mobile, it'll auto move things into a single column if they're side by side. Where if I was using something like, where is it? Like a 2-column, this is a column and this is a column. This is a little bit harder to orient correctly, and sometimes it breaks. Sometimes it works out perfectly in MailChimp, sometimes it breaks. So I like using 1-column design, which is just stacking every single thing instead of having it split out. So what I did is I went ahead and grabbed one of those block in here, and then I just moved this information, and I also moved this image. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did that. Here's my wolf image. Gonna insert that. It's taking a second. There we go. You see that it kind of is like, whoa, that's not what I want. So here in the style tab, that's where I would be like, nope, I want this to be our NC State red. And then I want this to maybe, I always turn off edge to edge because it does weird stuff depending on the size of your image. And if you turn that off, it'll give you some margins where, yeah, this isn't perfect, but at least it has a little bit of breathing room and it's not like really messed up. And then I'm going to move the text position. I'm going to move the text to the right. And then that's a little bit too much room. I just know this for our content. So I'm going to do about half. That way they're kind of sharing the space. That won't matter as much, again, for mobile because these will be on top of each other. They'll swap, but just like play with that. A lot of this, I'm going to mention this when I get back to my presentation, but a lot of this is iterative. All of the stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, I know this needs to be half. I played with that first. I spent about an hour on this and was like, okay, how do I really improve what I've just done? It's not always intuitive. Usually we use 2/3, but for this one we can use half just because of what the image or what the information is. So yeah, I'm just going to go in. Here's where your default styles for like your headings and all of this would be. You set these here in the style of the actual email. So I have right here that my heading is going to be red, 22 point, and it's an Arial. And so if I go in here back to my block, and I put heading 1, it's going to make that red. You can't see it because it's a red block, but that's how it would look. You can obviously, like I said, edit these here and make them a little bit different. But yeah, that's how you would do that. I'm just going to go ahead and make this white as well. And I'm going to throw that font size down and make it not bold if I can. You get the point. But yeah, that is how you use your heading styles. Here is, just totally mess it up. But yeah, that's, similar to what I did over here. I'm really trying to get this zoom bar out of my way. It's not cooperating with me. Looks pretty much the same. Easy fix. Go ahead and delete that one. And then here, I just made this into a new text block. Just drug that information here and reformatted it. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving and show you kind of my 2 different buttons here. Here's one, here's another one. And then this is also a call to action. What I really like to do with calls to action with buttons is I like to add an arrow that's like, hey, this is not just text. This is like, it's leading you somewhere. Gonna be really honest. The way I do that is I just Google Unicode arrow and I copy it from right here. There may be a better way to do that, but that is the quickest way for me. And so that's what I do. And I literally just paste it right in. And I think that is better for call to actions because it gives you that visual cue as well as the verbal cue of like, this is going somewhere and doing something. This button honestly is just really big. I like our buttons to be a little bit more like this. It can be like I forget what the guideline is. I'd have to, refer back to my little self thing, but 30 pixels text is going to be huge. Like I said, we usually like to do 22 is our max. So for our button, I'm going to do about 20. And I like to keep these even numbers. So I'm going to give it like 18 padding. You can also set in MailChimp your button styles. I've just set it yesterday because I didn't know you could do that. So I'm not totally sure if it works with Classic Builder, if it's just with New Builder. But you can set your styles of your button so that every button is the same. I don't think it works with Classic Builder because if I drag a button block in here, oh, it's freezing. It's like, no, please don't do that. There we go. It's not the button style I set yesterday. So I think it works with New Builder only. But if you're using New Builder a lot, maybe that's a helpful pro tip. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this button right here just to be the same thing. Again, just pasting that in. Really easy here. I think I said 20 up top with 18 padding. And that's just going to make those buttons look more consistent. I did reformat these out of this thing. This is a case in point about your content. I think having the contact information down here, I'm not going to be looking for it down here. I think you would look for it up here with everything else about the event. So I moved this totally, I just deleted it. And I moved the information up here so that if you had a question before registering, you could go ahead and get that information right there. Are there any questions about anything I've done so far in MailChimp? Sweet. My next biggest thing is that I have a lot of different dividers. A nice thing with MailChimp is that when you edit a divider block, you can apply those changes to every single one, and that's gonna, hopefully you can see that there. That's gonna make everything consistent. That's one of those consistency is key things where it's yes, I could technically divide these 2 sections with a different divider block and then make this one red because it's no longer our tailgate partners, it's our ag day partners. But I don't think it's really intuitive for people to know, oh, well, that's why that one's red. This is why this one's black. And then this one is a section separator, right? No one's going to think, oh, the gray one is separating a section. The black one is separating these 2 and the red one is, no one's going to be thinking that. They're going to be like, why are all of those different? So just make it easy for people. Just be like, these are our dividers. Here they are. I like to make them a little bit thicker so people can see them. I actually like to do 4 pixels, not 5. Boom. Cleans it up just a little bit. Again, for this one, I just swapped out all of these and said, okay, here's an image. Boom. much cleaner than having 6 images, having to deal with them. And then MailChimp will tell you, I love this part about MailChimp. This is literally a screenshot. Like I said, I didn't optimize anything in this email because I knew I wasn't sending it, but they'll tell you when an image is too big, when you need to edit stuff. And so all you have to do to fix that is go into your image editor and change the dimensions. Click save.
Or if you just press save, Leanne, there, it'll do it for you.
And do it for me. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I do. See, there we go. I do more work. It's working on it, but yeah, it'll reformat your images. I did that for all of these. The changes didn't, like, 785 is huge for this thing that I really need to be a thumbnail size. I think I made it like 300 pixels here. So just think about that. I think about like, oh, how big is my image? How big does it really need to be? This one's, again, like 1200 wide, 263. I think I edited that down to like 600, something like that. And then I did the same thing with our textiles here. I made these all consistent. I said, okay, this one, I want it to be a heading. It's taking the color from over there. So I'm just going to grab our color and make it that. I would do the same thing here so that we have that consistency that I talked about, that everything is the same. I know it's a heading because it looks the same. Pretty simple, not anything too crazy. I try to keep it light. But yeah, that's what I have to say about working in MailChimp. The biggest thing is that this was not super like, oh, I know every single thing that's going on. I had to test and play with this a little bit. I had to move things around. There's probably things that I would still move around before I sent this email. I would test it in every single inbox before I did it. I would make sure I had it on mobile since I'm designing it the first time. I would say really put that work in for your first email, but if you're sending recurring emails, if you do that at the jump and you go through and you test at the beginning, if you're sending a new email, that's basically the same thing. You don't have to do that necessarily every week. So that's a nice part about MailChimp, is that it'll save those changes if you're using templates. Gonna jump back into this. Here are my takeaways with that. Like I literally just said, iterations are important. You need to do a lot of them. You're gonna learn as you're doing more of this, what's working and what isn't working from each one. On that, test twice, send once. Send it to your team, send it to your mom, send it to anyone. They're gonna catch errors that you're not because you've been looking at it for 2 hours and they haven't. Doing that is gonna allow you to see, they're basically your test audience. They're going to be like, oh, this confused me, or this is spelled wrong, or this has 3 spaces and you didn't see that. Doing that test version allows you to send once. We test every week, even with our like recurring emails. We test Cal's Weekly every week. I always get a test email and I always am like, let me look at the spacing, let me see, because we're building that manually. So we need to look through it. I also like this a lot. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? There's a lot of trends in design. There's a lot of like cool things that people are pushing, but if you know what's working for your audience, if you have high click rates, if you have high open rates, I would say don't, unnecessarily fuss with things. If it's on brand, if your audience is responding to it, if you're displaying the content effectively, you don't have to go and make everything, red or do a bunch of blocks because that's what you think you need to do. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Don't overthink things. On the flip side of that coin, good design is an investment. It is more about how your email is looking. It's about how it's working. So you need to take a look at that and say, is my email working? Is it broken? Do I need to fix it? And really invest into design as a use for your readers, as visual hierarchy, as showing them how to display the information, than just like, yes, it is making it look good, making it look on brand, but it's also something else as well. That's like a huge undertaking in your mind. My last tip is that you're not alone. I'm here, CalsCom is here. If you need help, I'm happy to jump on a call. I'm happy to respond to an email. I'm happy to just like put me in your test audience. I'll look through your email. Even if I don't see anything, I'll give you a thumbs up and be like, yep, that's great. Can't wait to, get that email from you. All right, here's my call to action. Tomorrow, I always like to do this, like I said, with my design workshops. If you have specific questions where you're like, I really need help making a GIF. I don't know how to do that and I want to use that in my email. this is your time. They're 20-minute time slots. I only have them set up for tomorrow. If that doesn't work for you because you already have a meeting, here is my email. We can set up our own little time slot. I'm happy to walk through something. Or if you're like, oh, I don't really need 20 minutes. I just have one question, or I just want you to look at this and give me some feedback. There's my email. Please feel free. I'm always here. And then last thing that I have to do, shameless plug, if you don't already get our emails, here is how to get them. The magazine was at the footer. We'll probably be moving that soon so that it's a little bit more prominent, but please subscribe to our emails. We would love for you to hear from us if you don't already. And that's all I have. So I'd love to take any questions. And I am going to stop sharing so I can see everyone's faces. Anything? Oh, do I need to leave that up? Let me put the link to office hours in the chat while I'm sitting here, that way, since I've turned off share screen and just taken it from everyone. Here is a link for that if you need it. If there are no questions, I'm gonna wait in the silence
Yes,
a little bit
Leah,
longer.
while we let people marinate on any questions, thank you so much. And then also talking about next month's CalsCom workshop will be on August 17th at 10 a.m. and Keishan Gantar is going to be presenting for us. And it is about getting smartphone savvy part 2. So in the registration information for this coming month, I will also include the recording from the getting smartphone savvy part 1. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. If you have any like one-on-ones, we do still have some time. I'll hang around a little bit if you want to talk about something right now. If you're interested in seeing a GIF, I can show you a GIF in Canva really quickly. Just let me know. Thanks everyone for coming, and please don't hesitate to stick around and ask Leanne any questions. Thanks so much again, Leanne.